and exactly how Donald Trump and the other defendants deceived banks, insurance companies, and other financial institutions for their own personal gain. We proved just how much Donald Trump, his family, and his company unjustly benefited from his fraud. Today, the court, once again, ruled in our favor and in favor of every hard-working American who plays by the rules. Donald Trump and the other defendants were ordered to pay $463.9 million. That represents $363.9 million in disgorgement, plus $100 million in interest, which will continue to increase every single day until it is paid. Donald Trump, the former chief financial officer of the Trump Organization, Alan Weisselberg, and the former controller of the Trump Organization, Jeffrey McConney, are each banned from serving as an officer or director of any New York company for 3 years. Mr. Weisselberg and Mr. McConney are also banned for life from serving in a financial management role in any New York company. Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump are banned from serving as an officer or director of any New York company for 2 years. And Donald Trump and his companies are banned from applying for loans from any New York bank or financial institution for 3 years. A new independent director of compliance will be created at the Trump Organization to ensure the company establishes internal protocols and meets financial reporting obligations. And the current independent external monitor will continue to oversee the company's financial dealings and ensure this fraud cannot continue. I want to be clear. White-collar financial fraud is not a victimless crime. When the powerful break the law and take more than their fair share, there are fewer resources available for working people, small businesses, and families. And everyday Americans cannot lie to a bank about how much money they have in order to get a mortgage to buy a home, or a loan to keep their business afloat, or to send their child to college. And if they did, our government would throw the book at them. I want to thank the entire incredible and hardworking team in my office that tried this case, because the scale and the scope of Donald Trump's fraud is staggering. And so too is his ego and his belief that the rules do not apply to him. Today, we are holding Donald Trump accountable. We are holding him accountable for lying, cheating, and a lack of contrition, and for flouting the rules that all of us must play by. Because there cannot be different rules for different people in this country, and former presidents are no exception. This decision is a massive victory for every American who believes in that simple but fundamental pillar of our democracy, that the rule of law applies to all of us, equally, fairly, and justly. Thank you.
I've just found something out. I've got to keep a straight face. Like, straight face. Have you ever played that game when you're not allowed to smile? Like, you outstare somebody. I do it with my father-in-law quite a lot. Anyway, because Judge Engeron has just fined the Trump Organization and Trump $364 million, which I don't think he has, and the MAGAs are upset, by the way, because do you realise something? I've got to sit properly and say this, so I don't... you're not allowed to smile. I'm serious. MAGA are banning smiling. Fox News are furious. How dare you laugh and smile? I repeat, Trump's been fined $364 million and... Yes, but can't smile. Seriously, because the judge has been caught on camera smiling and it's wrong. It is totally wrong. Trump's been fined. All right. Just keep a straight face for 5 seconds. Don't laugh and pause. $364 million. Roll the judge.
Or they will be thrilled. And that's the problem, is that, you have James now being shown in the background. You've got Trump in the foreground, and it fulfills the narrative on both sides. Trump is likely right. I mean, he's being shown.
They're seriously upset. That is the worst thing right now within the MAGA stratosphere, the fact that a judge laughed. If anyone's ever been to court, you find after sentencing is given, after adjudication is given, judges are human, they're allowed to react. I didn't realise that the actual situation is when a judge has given their final ruling, they're like, not allowed to move. If you move, somebody at Fox, they'll get some talking head on who's being paid, and they will castigate you. How dare you have any level of emotion? You're not allowed to be alive. Your heart's breathing? Boom, boom, boom. You have a pulse? It's not allowed. In the MAGA world, you're not allowed to ever do anything that they say is, unless they say it, you can't do it. So you've got no right to breathe. You're dead? That's how MAGA wants you to be.
It's pretty shocking behavior from someone who, wants to be an attorney general.
Yeah, and in the line she has there about nobody is above the law, his folks will say nobody's below it either. You cannot simply use the law as a cudgel and go after somebody in a way that appears political. This lends credence to the argument that President Trump makes over and over that it's not just a prosecution, these are persecutions. And his base is going to rally to that every time this happens. We got to remember, too, that as you noted there, and as he continues to note, there weren't, quote, victims here. There weren't people that came forward and demanded justice from the attorney general. So in New York, even though we're referring to this as the Supreme Court, they have unusual language that they use in New York. It's not their final court of appeal. Their court of appeals is actually above their state Supreme Court. So the Trump team feels like on so many different counts, they've got a really strong measure on appeal. No doubt that they're going to take every penny of this to appeal. So what happens in the meantime? A lot of this has been put on hold, taking the business licenses and those kinds of things. So we'll see how they do on appeal, but no doubt that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, Ari, when you evaluate your own properties for the purpose of insurance or the purpose of getting a loan from a bank, it comes basically with language that says this is our assessment. Then the banks step in, they do their assessment on how much the property is valued. And in none of those cases involving the Trump organization did any of these parties bring any litigation against the Trump organization for any false representation, correct?
No, that is exactly right. And nobody has ever accused any of these New York bankers or insurance people of being behind the ball. I mean, these guys are pretty sharp at what they do, and they know how to sharpen their pencils. So all of this is why I put this in the political category, not a legal category. It's one of the reasons the norms have broken down in this country. Because when the Democrats go to these kind of resorts to get somebody they don't like, we all lose faith in the system. It's the same thing as 2 impeachments that violated the rules of the House. It's all just to get the man they don't want. And the perverse result of it is they're going to get the man they don't want. As a result of all these prosecutions.
Mentioned a treasure trove, a quote, treasure trove of documents in David Pecker's office relating to information assembled from all these catch and kill operations against people who potentially had damaging information on the president. You also mentioned that the president was very concerned about the whereabouts of these documents and who possessed them. Does that treasure trove of documents still exist?
I don't know. I had asked David Pecker for them.
So you would say the person who knows the whereabouts of these documents would be David Pecker?
David Pecker, Barry Levine, or Dylan Howard.
Okay, thank you. Secondly, I want to ask a little bit about your conversation with my colleague from Missouri about asset inflation. To your knowledge, did the president ever provide inflated assets to an insurance company?
Yes.
Who else knows that the president did this?
Alan Weisselberg, Ron Lieberman, and Matthew Calamari.
And where would the committee find more information on this? Do you think we need to review his financial statements and his tax returns in order to compare them?
Yes, and you'd find it at the Trump org.
Thank you very much. The last thing here, the Trump Golf Organization currently has a golf course in my home borough of the Bronx, Trump Links. I drive past it every day, going between the Bronx and Queens. In fact, the Washington Post reported on the Trump links Bronx course in an article entitled, "Taxpayers Built This New York Golf Course and Trump Reaps the Rewards." That article is where many New Yorkers and people in the country learned that taxpayers spent $127 million to build Trump links in a, quote, generous deal, allowing President Trump to keep almost every dollar that flows in on a golf course built with public funds. And this doesn't seem to be the only time the president has benefited at the expense of the public. Mr. Cohen, I want to ask you about your assertion that the president may have improperly devalued his assets to avoid paying taxes. According to an August 21st, 2016 report by the Washington Post, while the president claimed in financial disclosure forms that Trump National Golf Club in Jupiter, Florida, was worth more than...
Let's go ahead and bring in Paula Reed, our chief legal correspondent, to talk about what she is seeing here, with our understanding here, Paula, that this is really kind of hot off the presses, this ruling.
Yes, the paper is still warm, but we're going through it right now. And as you and Kara were talking about, this case is so personal because it represents such a threat to Trump's business, his family business, and his identity. Remember, it was his identity as a businessman that brought him fame before he arrived at the White House. But in looking at the summary of this ruling, we see in addition to the monetary penalties that Kara just laid out, they have found him liable for fraud, and they are going to continue the appointment of an independent monitor. So back in 2022, the judge installed a monitor to keep an eye on exactly what the Trump organization was doing when it came to its business dealings. Now, among the things this monitor uncovered were a $48 million loan, for example, to the company itself, but there was no paperwork. They couldn't really find any information. That was just one thing that came up. Now, Trump lawyers have insisted because they loaned the money to themselves, they didn't have the paperwork that they needed, and insist that the monitor has found no fraud. Now, the judge also here orders the installation of an independent director of compliance. But I also want to note that they are saying here, the judge is saying that they're going to limit the defendant's right to conduct business in New York for a few years.
He's bouncing off my booty cheeks. I love the way he rides. I can hardly breathe when he's pumping deep inside. I kiss him on his neck and then he kisses on my pussy. Call him daddy while I holler, man, that boy.
She says this verdict is a manifest injustice, plain and simple. It is the culmination of a multi-year politically fueled witch hunt that was designed to, quote, take down Donald Trump before Letitia James ever stepped foot into the Attorney General's office. Countless hours of testimony proved that there was no wrongdoing, no crime, and no victim. Given the grave stakes, we trust that the appellate division will overturn this egregious verdict, she writes, and end this relentless persecution against my clients. Let me make one thing perfectly clear. This is not just about Donald Trump, she says. If this decision stands, it will serve as a signal to every single American that New York is no longer open for business. Ari, your thoughts on that statement from the attorney? Shannon, you know, of all the cases that have come against the former president, this one, I would say, and the hush money Stormy Daniels case, you know, sort of was problematic in terms of the interpretation of a lot of people who study the law, as you do. Now, in this case, none of the banks came forward. None of these real estate investment companies came forward and said that the Trump organization failed to repay them. They claimed that the Mar-a-Lago estate, for example, was, I believe, worth $18 million, which is preposterous for anybody who's looked for, you know, a cottage in Palm Beach. You couldn't get one of those in that neighborhood. So, you know, it's really shocking how political this appears to be in going after him. Let's play those Letitia James comments when she was running for to be the Attorney General. Watch this.
No one is above the law, including this illegitimate president. I look forward to going into the office of Attorney General every day, suing him, defending your rights, and then going home.
I say one name, Donald Trump. That should motivate you.
Will you sue him for us?
Oh, we're going to definitely sue him. We're going to be a real pain in the
Oh my
He's
gosh.
going to know my name personally.
Every time I see that, Shannon, it's pretty shocking behavior from someone who, you know, wants to be an attorney general.
Yeah, and in the line she has there about nobody is above the law, his folks will say nobody's below it either. You cannot simply use the law as a cudgel and go after somebody in a way that appears political. This lends credence to the argument that President Trump makes over and over that it's not just a prosecution, these are persecutions. And his base is going to rally to that every time this happens.
I'm a deep state secret operator. Oh, shite. Oh, shite. I'm a deep state secret operator. Deep in psych. Deep in psych. I'm a secret deep state operator. Oh no. I'm a secret deep state operator. All my life. Oh shite. Oh shite. I've been trying to keep it secret, but the Trumpy Trumps have sold me out. Oh no. What a night. I'm in shite.